Quite high. And I'll be wasting away a lot of the bottom because otherwise it'll be a bowl. It'll be fairly deep platter. So I want to keep going this way until I'm fairly thin. Leave a little.
Are you intending to put it on a chuck at all, or are you just going to keep?
No, I'm going to use it on rubber. Okay, I think I've now got my outside pretty much the shape that I want it. I've turned away that bad wood that had the crack, and now I'm going to work on this side, and then we'll reverse it around and turn the bottom. So, how am I doing so far? Pretty easy. Move this back out of the way a little bit here. Things haven't been used in a while around here. Kind of, I don't know if I can quite get that far. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to leave the tailstock here for safety's sake for just a little while longer, but then I'll be removing it to work on the center. And I'm going to go to a slightly smaller gouge. I'm going to take it my time a little more. And ABC, set it on the rest, anchor it with your hand, roll it in the direction you want to go, and proceed with a cut. ABC. Got a question for everybody. If the grain of the wood is running the length of the lathe, where do I cut? From where to where? Where do I start my cut? Where do I end up?
Which way you cut?
Let's just pretend it's this log, right? Where's my log? I think I put them in the car already. I've got a log on here. The grain's going that way. So when I cut, how do I make sure I'm cutting downhill with respect to the grain? It's from large diameter to small, or from small to large?
Large to small.
Large to small if the grain is this way. This particular platter, the grain is this way. It's an end grain platter. It's that piece of wood out of the center of the log that has vertical grain on the whole round piece that I cut out with the bandsaw. So you want to be cutting downhill or from large diameter to small. And right now I'm just going to form this edge. It's very sharp. I just do a pull cut on both sides and end up just rounding it. And when you cut with one of these bowl gouges, you can start out with the flute straight up, and then you can roll it over until it begins to cut. And at that point, you're rubbing the belly. If you continue to roll it over to where only the bottom flute, the top flute is almost touching, but the bottom one is, and you use a very light cut and pull toward you, that's a shear scrape. And it can take away a lot of sanding if you shear scrape. So you roll the tool all the way over, pull very fine toward you, and this is what you get, is this super fine little spirals that'll have very, very little sanding involved. And you can roll the tool the other way and do the bottom of the rim. And I even hold just the metal when I'm doing a shear scrape, because you're just applying very, very light pressure and just rolling the tool around. You almost never have a grab or catch doing this. So I've now formed that edge nice and round. And I'll come back over here and continue to hollow.
I call that the difference between force and finesse. Earlier in the demo, he was stalling the lathe because he was applying force. Now, when he gets down to the basic end of forming an edge and everything, it involves finesse and that force.
So now I've established the thickness of the rim of the platter right here. I'm not going to go much thinner, but I am going to make the two rims go downhill slightly going in. So when you grab it, it just feels nice in your hand. And if there's any food or whatever slops, it rolls back into the bowl or the platter. So a slight downhill angle here. So if I start here and take a little lid off and then just keep backing up, that way I'm still taking a light cut each pass. And then I can feel, do I have it about where I want it? I do. Nice. Now we're just going to go back to what Gary said, hogging. I think you can see that this goes fairly quickly to make platters. David Ellsworth in his book on wood turning said he has a little illustration in there, and it shows that flat platters are very profitable because they're quick to make, they're easy access, you're not working through a small hole, it's easy to sand them while they're spinning. And then if you start bringing the walls up and having restricted openings more and more, or taller forms, they become more difficult, less profitable. So if you want to make money turning, turn shallow bowls or platters as opposed to tall hollow forms. Now you have to slow down a little bit as you approach the middle because the wood's turning quite slowly. Oh, we got something in here. Huh. Wondered where that went. We can fish it up. Knockout bar. You get that with kids, okay? And they do use this lathe. I wanted to get just a little more RPMs here. So go that way one. That should help. All right. I'm going to take away the center so that I can angle my tool rest in and have it closer. If you're turning big work, I almost never adjust the tool rest with the lathe running. I don't, on a little piece like this, you can leave the lathe running when you move your tool rest, but if you're turning something this big around, if it hits, you could have it really get hurt. So always a good idea to be on the safe side. So I got about 1/4 inch thick here. That's what I'm going to aim for. So in a real world, if we're actually making one, it's not just a demo. I would take the time to sand as best I could out here and in here with it running or not running. And if you take your time and make really nice cuts, go very slowly, you should be able to start sanding. This is dry wood. I would say at 180 you could probably.
Do you have an end grain hook tool?
And a hook tool with me? No, but it would be ideal.
I was going to say, take out the.
Maybe we need to have a hook tool demo.
Yeah.
I have them and I've made them, and they're wonderful for end grain hollowing. So anyway, I've got a pretty good thing. I'm going to take the middle out, and then we're going to go to this. And today's demo will be short but sweet. A little high. because the piece of wood I brought's a little thick. So had I had a piece of 5/4 or 1 inch lumber, I wouldn't have had much bowl at all. It would have been much flatter. So I guess it's a shallow bowl today. Thank you. And I have one little scratch line here that I'd like to get out with a sharp tool. And
That saves a lot of sanding, that patch right there.
because I had a very sharp tool. And so what I would do to sand this, I have a little electric drill with a 2-inch sanding disc on it. I would turn the lathe on slow, and I would put that in there and do some sanding quickly. And then I would shut the lathe off and see what didn't get cleaned up by that sanding. And it's 9 times out of 10, it's the 2 end grains and not the 2 side grains. So you can spend a little time with the lathe off just sanding those 2 end grain patches. And you don't have to have a lathe running for that. So you take a little more wood off where you need to and none where you don't need to.
So what's the best way to make sure you don't have any tear out at those 2 end grain points? Because that's my,
Well, that would only usually is side grain bowls where you get that. This is an end grain bowl.
right,
But I figure there's always going to be a little.
okay.
And I get a sharp tool for the final pass, go real slow, take a tiny, tiny bit off, and then start with whatever grit you have to. You should be able to start around 120. If you're going back to 80, that's okay. You'll do some of that, maybe even 60 sometimes, but it's about the end of it.
Steve, one of the things I've struggled with is the bottom of the inside of the bowl is getting that flat.
Right? We're going to do that right now.
Okay.
But to answer your question, I just take a little straight edge,
Yeah.
put it across to make sure it's flat.
No, I'm talking the inside of the bowl.
The inside?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's just practice. And I mean, you can have a slight concave inside bowl or dead flat. It's up to you. But this one's just slightly depressed in the middle. Not bad. I don't know how to answer that, John.
Okay.
I guess just take a little stick and put it in there and see if it's flat.
Have you used a flat scraper? Ever tried flat scraper?
Flat scraper works okay.
I've had really good luck with that.
Yeah.
I just started doing that.
So
It works really well.
this is the next step to do the bottom. It's not hard. This thing doesn't want to glide today at all. Okay, how are you going to find the middle? Anybody?
You have an X.
X marks the spot. As long as the faceplate was applied dead center on the X, but it might not be. So I like to bring this thing in and just very like that. And then I use my tool rest, I put it close and just turn it by hand. And I can see when the tool rest is the closest, it's right there. So if I just tap that down just a little bit and retighten, and then look again.
Who does, Sam?
There we go. So we're still moving just a little here. Right about there. There we go. Pretty darn close. Now, if this is off a little, you can do a little bit of shaving. I wouldn't take a lot off or your wall thickness is going to vary a lot, but you can do a little bit of that. And it would have been nice before I put it on here if I would have measured how deep I could go, so that I could measure from the rim down and know where the interior is. But let's just go for it, huh?
So you've only done this a couple of times,
Right,
so
right.
I think you'll be able to find it.
Well, I know I've got at least 3/4 of an inch to go, so I'm going to waste away quite a bit here. I want to get rid of the screw holes too. the other way, you can tell. You can listen. You can also take it off and check. How am I doing? I still have a 1/2 inch. And I've got a pretty well-defined little ring here where the live center left a mark, so that shouldn't be too bad. I'm gonna take another little bit, another quarter. And round that just a little bit. And now I'm going to make a little place here to sign your name. So a little groove. And now we want the bottom to sit flat on the counter, so I want to look across and make sure that the middle isn't sticking out more than the 2 rims. And it is right now, but you can deal with that. So I want to take a little more off in the middle. How small do you think you can go with this thing? How small is pretty darn small? Golf tee.
Really?
A golf tee.
Yeah.
About a 1/4 inch connection. You know, if you had a tool to reach in there, you can pare that down because you're just pushing. As long as it's good solid wood here that's not split or in any way, you can back off on your tailstock pressure just a little bit as you get a little skinnier. Why don't I get the center out of there? I guess I'm not understanding.
He likes to leave a spot for his signature. He can follow it better.
Oh.
This
what
this
you're
little
saying.
groove is this little groove is where I sign my name.
Like me.
Oh, okay. I
And
like to take that right out and just have a flat.
you can. I can take it out.
Okay. Yeah.
You want it gone?
No, that's okay.
Oh, I don't mind.
Yeah, he likes to get a turn on
Yeah.
How's that look? You like that better?
That's nice.
Okay. So all you need to do to finish this is obviously you could sand in here and just pull it off. And it's pretty much 1/4 inch the whole way. That didn't take very long.
one little, maybe it's not right, but I do it, is when we were talking about the shrink wrap,
Yeah.
when I have done a plate like that, I have wrapped it and then duct taped it. And usually if I take it down right to the T, I can remove it and go and clean it up.
Yeah, if I had a spindle gouge or detail gouge that was real pointed, I could have probably taken that down a lot further. But in this live center's big too. I couldn't get in there. But
The other thing you can use, Jim has a, what do you call that?
Well, it's a carving
Right.
gouge, but it's real shallow.
yep.
Turn the lathe off, just push in.
And just turn the lathe by
It'll
hand.
pop right out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoon bill? Yeah, don't have the lathe on like that.
And you also can do this,
There you go.
and you can keep doing that until you get into the bottom of the bowl. And you wish you hadn't.
Jim, you talking spoon bill gouge? That's
Yeah,
nice.
real
But
flat.
that-
Yeah.
That doesn't take very much to remove. With a little sander that's 2-inch on an electric drill, that'll come off in no
No,
time.
yeah.
And if you didn't want to start with a faceplate on this thing, if you want to do the whole thing on rubber, what I would do is I would turn probably the inside first, snap off the nubbin on the inside, turn it around and turn the outside second, and then snap off the nubbin
Oh, really?
on that. You don't have to use screws at all. So if it happens to be a 1-inch board you're turning a platter out of, the screw penetration sometime will end up in the project. You can glue a glue block on and, screw to that. Or you can turn a chuck tenon and grab that. It only takes a little grab for a platter because 1/8 of an inch in the chuck jaws is plenty for a platter. And I prefer to compress the chuck jaws rather than to expand them. Because I've expanded them and I've cracked the piece by over tightening when I try to drive it by in expansion mode.
Done that.
Yeah, you've been there and done that. So pass that around. It's a quick little demo, but it's a fast production method for platters. And I think you find out that if you get green wood and turn a bunch of those, leave them about a ½ inch thick, they dry real fast. And you can throw them back on and sand them real easy. You can
So what's real
sell 'em.
fast?
How long did that take?
No, I mean to dry.
To dry? Well, it depends how wet the wood is to start
Well,
with.
right.
You know, if you're dealing with boards, which you can use flat lumber that's already dried. It's kiln dried lumber.
You can put it microwave too.
You can microwave
Temperature
them.
microwave.
Yeah, but that was a dried piece of firewood. It was never really been dried. It's just slab wood. But I think you can see that it doesn't take much to turn a platter, right? And I wanted you to experience the rubber, because at my shop I have rubber discs this big. And even the really big bowls that I turn, when I turn the bottom of them, I put them against rubber. I suppose I could have a vacuum chuck if I ever wanted to, or some kind of large chuck to grab them, you know.
Well, they make,
Right.
you know, like, you can make a homemade, you know what a cold chuck is? Anybody know what a cold
Yeah,
chuck
the
is?
cold jaws.
You
Yeah.
can make a homemade cold chuck out of a piece of
Yeah.
plywood. And that's what I did, you know.
And I also have a plywood disc about 2
Yeah.
feet in diameter,
Yeah.
and it has 4 threaded rods coming through it. And there's another plywood disc with a big hole cut in it, so that the bowl goes against the rubber on the first disc. The rods come through, and the big other disc has a hole in it which goes over the bowl,
You
but it
really
leaves
have
the
to
bottom
watch
of the
your
bowl
fingers.
exposed.
Your fingers on that one.
Yeah, you got to really watch when you turn that one on, because you know these threaded rods are going around.
Yeah.
But it really does hold big bowls nicely, and they're not going to get away on you. And you got complete access to the bottom then.
That is, how to grip a given piece is a big part of wood turning.
Right.
Especially if you're gonna reverse chuck and do the bottom or something like that. But how you grip that piece is important to finishing it. And if you don't know how to do it,
Yeah.
you're not gonna get the pieces you want.
I've just really found this rubber method works great for me, just to force things against rubber. And unless it's a natural edge bowl that has a wavy bark rim, you can't do that. But you can make the rubber to fit in here.
I've got a 16-inch disc with half-inch carpet, high-density carpet pads, and I got a circle every inch.
Yep.
So I can send them to bowl pretty
Right.
close.
Yeah. But these are easy to make, not much money involved, and you just move it around till you get it to run about right, and go for it. Not hard. Thanks for being attentive. That was a simple demo, but at least we had
That was
one.
great.
Good.
Good video, thank you, Archie.